Another very important element of your mixing process is making use of compression. A compressor is used to reduce the dynamic range of any audio signal. So imagine you recorded some vocals, and certain parts of the vocals are kind of quiet and other parts are kind of loud. In a track, you would like the vocals to be consistent throughout. So a compressor can be used to reduce the dynamic range so you have this consistency in the part. We're going to take a look at FL Studio's Fruity Limiter to create this reduction of dynamic range, so our parts sound more balanced and sound well in the entire mix.
Let's now talk about how we can control the dynamic range of individual parts by using a compressor. Alright, so I'm going to again select a segment of this track over here. Let's have a listen to what this sounds like. I'll open up the mixer. Now all the drum elements over here, the drum corps, kick, clap, 808 hi-hat, snare, are all routed to this drums track over here. And I would like to control the overall dynamic range of the drums. So let's isolate all these parts. And then on the drums track, let's go ahead and add a compressor to control the dynamic range. I'm going to use the Fruity Limiter. A limiter is an extreme form of a compressor, but the Fruity Limiter can be switched to compression mode, and now we can just use compression. Now with compression, we're reducing the dynamic range of a signal. So how the Fruity Limiter does that is by setting a threshold first. So as I adjust the threshold, you notice that blue line appear. And any signal that crosses that threshold now needs to be addressed by the compressor. So I would say the threshold is the most important element on a compressor. If your threshold is set incorrectly, let's say if the threshold is set up here, no signal ever crosses this threshold, hence the signal never gets compressed. So you want to set the threshold based on the signal level of the existing track. So hit play for a bit, look at how loud the signal is, and then set the threshold. So anything that crosses this blue line is now going to get compressed. If I bring it lower, more of the signal is going to get compressed. And if I keep it kind of towards the higher end, just a wee bit of the signal is going to get compressed. Alright, so let me bring it down here. Now currently nothing is being compressed. Even though we've set the threshold, we haven't set how much to compress or how much to reduce the level of these peaks. And that can be done with the ratio knob. So if I increase this, I'm now telling the compressor based on a ratio how much to reduce the level of the signal that crosses that threshold. And you can visually see that result in this line over here. So again, if the threshold was higher, you notice very little activity over here because very little of the signal is crossing that line, the threshold line. But if I bring the threshold way down here, you notice how the entire signal becomes very, very quiet because pretty much everything is being compressed and everything is being made super quiet. So you want to find a sweet spot, not overcompress things, but also not undercompress it where it's basically not doing anything. I think that's a good level over here. So we can clearly see significant reduction in these peaks. And if I turn off the entire plugin, you notice how the entire track is much louder and also overall much more dynamic. Alright, so let's turn it back on. So now this compressor is reducing the dynamic range, but also everything is really quiet. So what we can do to compensate is to add some gain. So now what we've done is we've reduced the dynamic range by reducing those peaks, and then we've overall added gain to bring the overall signal much louder. So that way the quiet parts are loud and the loud parts are still loud. Alright, let's hear this in context. If I turn off the compression, you notice that the drums are still present, but some of the quiet parts kind of get lost in the mix. But when it's on, everything is much more consistent. So that's basically how compression works. If you want to introduce consistency in any parts of your arrangement, you want to make use of the compressor to reduce its dynamic range and then overall make it louder and thus making it more consistent in the mix.